Okay, so today is the 3rd of February 2022, and it is the birthday of Alvar Aalto, the great Finnish architect. I hesitated a little bit to use the word great because I'm reticent, to say the least, towards inflated words, but I think he deserves this word. He deserves the word great. He was a great modern architect. And in fact, I should say he was a great architect. Maybe the word modern can be removed because the great architects doesn't matter, born in or living in the 16th century or the 20th century, they are architects. And, you know, that one is modern and one is, you know, Baroque or Gothic or Rococo or whatever, it doesn't matter. We are talking about architects, and Alvar Aalto was an excellent architect, and even the word excellent somehow is not quite the appropriate one, because it is a little bit sensationalist. And I think here we are dealing with an architect who, in a sober way, was poetical, was lyrical, and we can learn from the you know, this Scandinavian spirit, which is the spirit of reticence, of not of sensationalism. Anyway, homage to Alvar Aalto, and let's just a second. Let's move forward. This was the man. You know, drawing with his back at the window, which is strangely, I guess he had a window also on the side, because I see that there is natural light on the drafting board. Otherwise, I don't know what to think about you know, turning your back on natural light. But forget this. He was one of the best architects of the 20th century, and he earned some. He won some architectural competitions. He was a master of architectural competitions, as opposed to Jean Nouvel, who claimed that he was. That's what Jean Nouvel said in a conference that I attended, that he was at that time the architect who lost the most competitions in the world. I don't know. I mean, there are many others who lost a lot of competitions, and I might even modestly include myself there. But anyway, Alvar Aalto was a very special man, and but what I read actually is that you know, I read, or somebody told me, that he used to contribute with several projects for a single competition, and he won at least in one case the first prize and the second prize. But I just found out when I talked about Aino Aalto, his first wife, that actually she contributed with the second project, the one that received the second prize. They submitted two different projects. Alvar one project and his wife another project, and he won the first prize. And I don't know if this was the case where he also got the second prize, but I imagine that yes, husband and wife submitted two projects for the same competition, and one got the first prize and the other one got the second prize. If we are talking about, because the information that I came across, it was not specific if she got the second prize or not. Anyway, moving forward, here is you know, the handsome Finn with a detail of an artistic manipulation of wood on the wall there. He did studies like this with curving the wood, and of course it was for the purpose of creating the furniture, but also for other functions like ornamental you know, a presence of wood in a certain way, in a certain context. And we are going to see, you know, such projects. It's possible that he was friends, or at least he knew Constantin Brâncuș, because I have seen in a book by Carola Gideon Velker with Alvar Aalto and Brâncuș in the garden of their, I don't know, summer house. Carola Gideon Velker was a very good art critic, and she wrote a beautiful book about Paul Klee, a painter I admire a lot, and she was the wife of, since we talk about husband and wife, she was the wife of Sigrid Gideon, who wrote important books like Space, Time, and Architecture. Now, I said I want to transmit inspiration and not information, but here I am, you know, bringing in some, you know, to an extent, precise information. Anyway, Alvar Aalto. Alvar Aalto, I even have, if you can believe it, I found, I have a coat, a jacket, which has a double A. It's exactly like he used to, like an ideogram, or now a signature of Alvar Aalto. And I do have this coat, a jacket. Now I don't know if it was, I don't think it was designed by him, but I think it is even written underneath Alvar Aalto. Anyway, forget about these trivialities. Here they are with his first wife, with Aino, and unfortunately she died. She was in her 50s, and she seems, you know, serious, and who knows what her role was. But I imagine again that in a couple's life. And in fact, I know, not just that I imagine, the role of the woman is very important, and it is overlooked. Very often, it is overlooked. Here he is with his second wife, who entered his office and his life. I don't know if, I think she became an employee of Alvar Aalto's office around the time when his first wife Aino died, but they got married, of course. Well, I don't know, about 1 year after Aino died, and here he is in his older age. I think he died at 78, and just like Dan Hangano, by the way. Some sketches and drawings of Alvar Aalto. He drew very, very well in you know, manually, very sensitive drawings. This is the longitudinal section through the Viipuri library, an important early work by them, because apparently his first wife, Aino, also had an important role here. But the drawing is I almost said splendid, graphically speaking. You know, forget about technicalities, and artistically is a very fine and sensitive drawing, and it shows a sensitiveness which is, in my opinion, inspiring. It's a longitudinal section which shows the, you know, the way the sound, and that's why the ceiling was made in this way, in order to bring the sound, being a very long room, to bring adequately the sound, the correct sound, to everyone in the room. This is another, you know, handmade drawing, which I think it cannot be better. You know, it's perfect. If I am to use such a simplistic evaluation, it's perfect. You know, it's simple, it's sensitive, it's just what it needs to be. And I would be very happy if I was able to do such a drawing today. Some more anxious sketches. He was a complex man. He even painted, and I will end this presentation with his paintings. This is a study for the Finlandia Hall. I talked a little bit yesterday about it when I showed next to it is the Chiasma Museum of Modern Art by Stephen Hall. This is a very important work by Alvar Aalto, and we are going to see it more in detail later on. Some studies for a church he built. Yeah. I mean, I try to advocate the cause of software and high technology, but I'm not at all indifferent to, you know, to the virtues of manual drawing. I think good, and I was told actually by someone very knowledgeable about digital technologies that the one who knows how to draw very well manually can also draw very well digitally. That somehow, you know, the talent at first becomes what is paralleled by the talent at the second. So between the manuality and the digital work, there is some kind of you know, relationship. That is, who is good at very good at manual drawing should be, with learning, of course, with study and exercise, good at digital work. Now, the Viipuri Library from 1927 to 1935, it took 8 years to build, and it's not such a huge building. This is a model, so sorry for the resolution. Apparently, Aino Aalto, his first wife, had a more important role in this building. I think she even supervised the construction, so she too should be acknowledged more. I don't know at this point sufficiently about this, except that in this particular building she had a more ample role. It's a good building, and yes, modern, but it's not the works in general, the works of the Aalto family, if I am to say so, of Alvar Aalto and his both wives, well, not simultaneously. They created a work which is not ostentatiously modern. It is modern, but there is this Scandinavian, if we are to include Finland in Scandinavia, and I think we can, reticence is this sense of measure that makes, well, we have today Bjarke Ingels, who is not so reticent, but usually the Scandinavians are known for reticence. But even here, even if you would say it's a building not flamboyantly asserting itself, you do have a certain sense of monumentality even here. And architecture, maybe even when it is very modest, cannot totally ignore what we call monumentality. This is a fragment of the room that we saw, a sketch of, a study of. It's a conference room, and with a ceiling that was done in this way in order to bring the sound properly to each one who sat here, even far away, even if far away from the speaker. But beyond the functionalist justifications, I think it's also the aesthetical one, because the ceiling, as it is more pleasant to look at, perhaps, than a flat ceiling. Now you understand that you know, for someone who's sitting here, indeed very far away from the speaker, this is also a chair created by them, and I say them because Alvar Aalto, in the creation of at least some pieces of furniture, would not have done what he did without Aino Aalto, his wife. It might even be that this was designed by her. And they produced these chairs with their own firm, Artec. They were the founders of Artec. They had, I think, two more partners, but Aino was also the manager and the design director. So the role of his first wife, Aino Aalto, was very important. And as I said, very important for this particular work, the Viipuri library. You see, with simple means, but not simplistic, much can be done. Now, of course, for today, this kind of chairs seem to be rather questionable, for a conference room. They are so modest and perhaps even to an extent not the most comfortable, certainly not for a long time. Although I see the first rows, they using different chairs. Anyway, but here we see the Scandinavian modesty in the very use. I don't think in any other part of the world this kind of chairs would be used in a conference room. No, maybe in a kitchen, but not in a conference room. And yet, in Finland, as you can see, they were used. And this says something about them, and I think it's something valuable. This modesty, this reticence. The Paimio Sanatorium, another important work from the early period in the creative life of the Aaltos, meaning him and his wives. The Paimio Sanatorium here, again, Aino Aalto played a major role, even in the creation of some important pieces of furniture, specifically designed for this sanatorium. Here it is. And I think they won these commissions through competitions. Now you have to understand, this is an almost 100 years old building, almost. If it would be, if it was built now, it would have made it into the pages of magazines, designs, and so on. I showed some of these images with other occasions. I admire the coloring, that they were not dogmatically obsessed by white. There is whiteness, but there are also colors. Who would have thought of, having yellow stairs? Well, they did and do. And this touch of blue is complementing the yellowness of the stairs. And then there is sophistication here and a modern sensitivity, which shows culture, which shows this ability to negotiate between opposites. This is not an architecture that cannot be done. Of course, it can be done. It can be done everywhere and now as well. But it requires a certain sensibility, and I would say culture as well, and seriousness. It's not an extravagant architecture, but it's beautifully done. I mean, look just at this detail here, how this single leg, connects both sides of the handrail. This is a subtle thing. It's a small thing. Here we have a different situation. And then again, here is changing. So there is simplicity, but there is also complexity just in this small portion of the building. And it's a large building. It's a sanatorium. It's not an entertainment, not an architecture dedicated to entertainment. And yet there is color here present in ways in which maybe not too many people would conceive a sanatorium. But again, we are dealing with a major architect who, like to invent and innovate, and that's what creativity is. the Paimio Sanatorium, built in 1930s, 1932, I think. You see, it's a simple architecture, but there is complexity also. Even this piece here, look how, how this lighting is accommodated in this. Everything is thought out properly and sensitively. Why is this yellowish part here on the floor? Well, can it be justified functionally? Maybe it announcing the information booth, or is connecting, chromatically with this part and here. So, there are touches of maybe even capriciousness, but capriciousness, I think, is part of any artistic process. We cannot completely, explain everything in rational terms. Like why was this done in this way? Maybe there is a justification, but only in part, so-called rational. Because sensitivity and emotions play a role too, and they are not always explainable in rational terms. I think nature, the way it is preserved and respected in general in the north, in the northern countries, is inspiring architects to be more sensitive and more reticent. I felt this in Sweden in a few days that I spent there. Is this I would say very special relationship they have with nature, perhaps because the climate is more harsh, more cold, summer days are fewer, the summer light, the sunlight is also, precious, because, the sun is not a continuous presence on the skies of the north. Maybe that's why they appreciate more the value of such things. And this in return has an effect, I think, on design and architecture. There are great designers in furniture, buildings. Denmark has a whole tradition of well, not just Denmark, but I mentioned Denmark. The king of chairs was Danish. The Danish mid-century design is again the talk of the town, so to speak. And I think a lot can be learned from the north, including, or maybe starting with their very specific appreciation of what a home is. Because in the north, a home becomes even more precious because of the climate, which it is as it is. The home is the abode, is the place where you find warmth, refuge, intimacy, and it is literally a home there, and most of the time. So I think we can learn about what a home is, maybe better there in the north. And with simple means, they can do a lot, the Scandinavians. Look at this chair, done for the Paimio Sanatorium. Specifically, it was designed for it. I understood that these openings in the back have also a functional role. But these were people, I think, suffering from tuberculosis. And I think this, well, I don't know if this was really the case, but somehow, helped the breathing or the connection between the lungs of the affected patient better, having some, this, well, very graphic, it's true, opening in the back. There was a reason why they did this. And actually, I think beyond the fact that I mentioned capriciousness, I think in the case of the Scandinavian designs, capriciousness is less present. I think most gestures they make, and not just in architecture and design in general, do have a functional component. The architecture of Alvar Aalto was named as being some kind of a functional or lyrical functionalism. And lyrical it is, but it's still functional or functionalist. So, even the aesthetical decisions or gestures do have a component that relates to function. So let's read here. Thus, the Paimio chair, which was the one that we looked at, was created. It's designed to lean back slightly to open the chest and inhale the maximum amount of air. The cuts in the back, that's what I was referring to, are for ventilation. These chairs were on the balcony of each room, and patients would sit many hours in the chair each day and just inhale the fresh pine air. Aalto was a big advocate for good design that promotes well-being. So it was important for him to ensure the functionality of the hospital beyond its exterior. Here it is. So this is the Paimio chair, designed specifically for the Paimio sanatorium. So we understood now better. The language was clearer than the one I used. The discrete function of these openings in the back to help the patient breathe, easier. It was important on the balcony of the sanatorium. A light itself, very refined and very simple. Again, it shows a sensitivity which unfortunately today is not so easy to come across, but then it happened. And you see even there are gestures, I'm sorry, and there are gestures of negotiation between the function of this object and the way the ceiling is in the immediate vicinity of the lamp. So again, this shows sensitivity. You have the sphere of the glass around the bulb. Then you have some kind of an honoring of the presence of the light here. Everything is designed simply, functionally, with less with the minimum of means, but in a sensitive way. This is not minimalism. No, it's not. Now a view, one of the balconies after some rain. This is an important work in the evolution, or even the start in a way, of modern architecture. The Paimio Sanatorium by Alvar and Aino Aalto. Here again, I understood that Aino Aalto had a major role, and she created more. In fact, some of these pieces of furniture specifically made for the sanatorium. Now, a paper mill. This is a less known work by Alvar Aalto, and I think a remarkable work. A paper mill, so industrial building, a production building, but it has a surprising monumentality and architecturalness. It's here is not very well preserved in this picture, but this could have been easily a chapel or a church. There is no question about it. Maybe in such a building could be born a possible, cult of the tree. you know, where, where you worship the tree because the, I'm sorry, because the paper is obtained from the tree, and so we sacrifice a tree in order to create paper. So why not imagine a possible, you know, the religion of the tree, a pagan religion, a neo-pagan religion. This building is, you know, I don't know if it was restored to its initial condition. I hope it was, but it's still standing. And I think it's a remarkable building. Doesn't matter almost, you know, looking a little bit derelict right now. Now, Villa Mairea, I don't know what's wrong with my voice. Sorry. Villa Mairea, very, very important villa or home or house built by Alvar Aalto. Such a deep, such a difference between this building and Villa Savoie, for example. I admire and I even love Le Corbusier, but I have to say that Villa Savoie, in my opinion, is overrated. And somehow I feel that Bernard Tschumi was correct when maliciously commented on a picture of Villa Savoie when it was neglected, that he said that the most architectural thing about this building is the state of decay it is in. In the case of Villa Mairea, we see a very different kind of architecture, one that is not promoting dogmatically with 5 points or I don't know how many, an abstract manifesto. It's a house. Yes, it's a rich house, but it's not imposing anything on us nor on nature. And I was there. I couldn't enter. You know, I didn't have. I guess it can be visited, but with a proper prior arrangement. I didn't make the arrangement, but I moved around the house, and it has a very, I don't know how to call it, a discrete organism. It's organic, but it's also functional. It's lyrical, but it's also cerebral. It's an art that Alvar Aalto excelled in. Although he was capable at times to even assume almost expressionistic you know, stances, but even those not in excess. There are, I think, most graphic or architectural gestures that we see here do have some kind of you know, justification. They are not just whims. You know, there is a reason behind certain so-called accidents. It's really a subtle art. I think Alvar Aalto teaches us architecture in a very subtle way. In small things, just like in a movie by another Scandinavian, I'm talking about the Swede Ingmar Bergman, where the smallest detail could have a significant contribution to the film. Here also a small detail could have a significant contribution to the building. It's an art. It really is. I mean, look even what's going on here. You know, there is no dogma here. Everything is done with a sense of measure, of equilibrium. The architectural language, I mean, look here, look at this. Now, the strict dogmatic functionalists would not accept this. This is one material, this is another material, and the separation, the frontier between them has this, yes, in this case, capricious contour line. You know, a dogmatic functionalist would never do something like this. But Alvar Aalto was not a dogmatic functionalist. Even the entrance into the house is We are going to see more images. It's a remarkable home, and it was built for someone with whom Alvar Aalto and his wife Aino associated to fund to start Artec, the firm that produced and designed some of the most important pieces of furniture and which still functions, Artec. Now look at this, we call it detail. You know, I think it's magnificent in its modesty and its simplicity. You know, it requires a specific sensibility and study to do something like this. It seems, you know, what's so special? Well, I think it is special. It is special. Or look here at the handle of this door. You know, it's in itself an homage to life and to creativity and to what an entrance door means or could be. You know, this is not born. This is not bought from you know, Dedeman, or if we are talking about Romania, or I don't know, Home Depot in the United States. This is created. This was created specifically for Villa Mairea by Alvar and Aalto. Look at the bricks here. They are not hidden underneath plaster. Yes, there are so-called imperfections, but these are very precious. They are signs of life and even love. You know, it's if you know how to place a brick above another brick properly, I think you're already making steps towards what architecture is. It's a sincerity here that plaster and so-called finishes do not encourage us to assume, but they thought and felt differently. Look at these columns within, I mean, in the interior of the Mairea villa. You know, first of all, they are black. I mean, who do black columns inside a house? I don't know of many cases, but then they are not only black. Look at this treatment here, you know, bringing the warmth of natural material. The color is the color of the earth. So the columns are you know, in themselves events, architectural events. Are there here needed two columns, narrow? I don't think so. Why did they make two here? Well, there must have been a reason. You know, this in itself, just this image, if I look at, I would say this is about love. It's about two people being in love, being together. But this is not what a home is. A home generally means a family. I don't know if these people had children. I have seen pictures with the owners of the house. I saw a man and a woman. Maybe these two columns are some kind of an abstract architectural portrait of the owners of the house. Very nice, you know. So again, you know, it's a specific kind of sensibility at work here that we can learn a lot from. Also, look, there is a base for the columns. You see, it's the transition, and I keep saying this. It's important, you know, for functional reasons, but also for other reasons. This transition between the horizontality of the slab and the verticality of the column with a base. The base existed also in classical orders. Now here we don't have a capital, it's true, but all in all, is this each column is made of kind of three parts. No, and so there is this this element of creating a column, which here is different, yes, but even here, you know, there is a base, and I like these columns very much. You know, whatever Wolf Prix might say that he's against columns, and I would understand why, because they usually are connected with structure and thus with authority, the authority of structure. But here is more. I think they are sensitive columns. And look here at this vertical side of the stair. This is music. This is an architectural sonata. You know, it's just the side of the chair, but of the stair. But look, even at the profile of each step is, this is art. You know, who says that the architecture is not art should look at this. You know, this is not just the result of calculation. This is the result of sensitivity. Look at the first step. It's different from the others, and it should be different from the others, in as much as the entrance door into the building should be different from other doors, because it's a special moment in the life of the house, the entrance door. Here, this first step is an event in the life of the staircase. This is art. Look here, it's like organ music. It's organ music, you know, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I have no other word. It's truly balanced, a balance between reason and feeling. Something, again, not easy to achieve at all. Interesting things that I notice only now, you know, like, for example, the base, you know, the base of these vertical elements, you see, is not cut, you know, perpendicular on the vertical element and parallel with the slab. It's at an angle. Why? Why did they do this? There must have been a reason somehow. Or is it just capriciousness or whim? I don't know. I don't think so. But maybe they contribute in this way to this feeling that this is, yes, it is static, yes, it is structural, yes, it is functional, but it's also musical, it's lyrical, and it's lyrical also from the outside the building. You know, this is placed in a natural environment. You'd insult nature if you created the building, as we see so many, you know, having nothing to do, no dialogue with the trees around. Here there is a dialogue. Look at this tree here. There is a dialogue between the forest and the building. And look at the terrace. You know, we think we invented the wheel now that we talk about sustainability. Look at this ceiling, at this roof here. It's a very sensitive work, and yet it's an opulent. The word opulent is not quite the correct one, but it is there is affluence here. There is richness. It's a big house. No, the Scandinavians in general, in my opinion, know something about what a home is, which should be more than a house. This is a home. It's not just a house. It is a house, but it's also a home. This is the entrance into the house. And I had been here, hesitant to knock at the door, and I didn't knock. But I admire, I hope I have some details of to show, you know, look, you know, there are two supports here, but they are different and different situations. This is different from this one. There is this, and look at I read that in most buildings by Alvar Aalto, the access to the entrance door is always a little bit oblique or postponed. It's not straight. It's not a straight path that goes right into the entrance. No, you see, it goes, you know, with some hesitation. It arrives from the side, so to speak. It's not prescriptive, it's suggestive. This is again a poetical disposition and an art. And look at the beauty of what is going on here. I hope I have a bigger picture. My God, I'm falling in love again with Alvar Aalto. I think after I end the presentation, I begin to study him more and more because there is a lot to learn about him, about architecture, you know, and about him. It truly is. It's and you know, the ivy is allowed to grow as it feels like growing, and there is no contradiction. Yes, there is, of course, it's the work of man. It's a house built by human beings like me and you, and yet you feel that it's a house which is not totally divorced from what is around it. It's in nature, but and it's not mimicking nature. It's still a house built by man, but this sensitivity is creating a dialogue and full of affection, I think, for what is around the building. I don't know about these chairs. These are not. These were not designed by Alvar Aalto or his or Aino Aalto. They don't bother me, of course. The building. Look at the top. You know, everything is so, you know, unassuming. You know, although it's a big house. Just like in the case of the houses and villas of Frank Lloyd Wright, although in the case of Frank Lloyd Wright, I didn't see very often the word villa. They are houses, but some large, some less large, but always fire or the hearth is at the center, not a geometrical center, but you know, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost a metaphysical center. You feel that the hearth is the heart actually of the building, even if it's a little aside, just like as it is. But I'm not sure about this. I should check out the physiology of the human body or the anatomy of the human body, if indeed the heart is a little on the left or is towards the center of the chest. It might be that we place our hand wrongly on the left side. And I think I read somewhere that the heart is not quite so much to the left as we might like to think. Anyway, I see, you know, I truly see these columns here, these pairs of columns. And of course, easily he could have used just one column. Why did he complicate himself? I truly see them as metaphors for a couple's life, because it was a couple that commissioned this famous house. Excellent work, truly. They also have books here, and books add something to a house. Patrick Schumacher said that you know, he doesn't need a house any longer or a home, because on a Kindle you can put you know, a lot of books and you take it with you. Well, if we could, because he said, but other people might think so too, that a house or a home is where your books are. But if the books are now on a Kindle, you know, you can get rid of the need to have a house. If things would be so easy. Look at the building from the outside. It's again, when I see the simplistic white cubes of today that we are so proud of, you know, and I think of Villa Mairea, I see two different kinds of architecture, really. This is an architecture that is complex. It is simple, but it's also complex. It is lyrical, it's creative, it's subtle. You know, we cannot compare, really. We can't. We can't. Here we have a master of modern architecture. And no, here we have a master of architecture. The word modern, there is also an ominous side to it. I mean, why did he create this part of the building rather dark? you know, a little bit heavy. I think Alvar Aalto knew something about the other side of life as well. I think he knew something even about pessimism, in essence about death. I worked once in an office with someone who worked with him in Finland, and he told me he was drinking heavily. Now, this information you cannot easily find in books about him. That's what that person told me, and he seemed to be serious. Why was Alvar Aalto drinking heavily? Who knows? Who knows what demons populated his soul? Maybe this darker side, rather ample and imposing of the building expresses some of his, you know, so-called dark side. All in all, it's a beautifully orchestrated building, and it's such a richness, even just in this picture. You know, what is this element which is not vertical? And look here, it's a different situation. There is unity, but there is also variety. There is multiplicity. Look at these windows here. They are different from all the other windows. Why are they in this way? The dogmatic spirit would say, no, no sense. We won't accept this. Well, he was not dogmatic. And look here, as I showed in previously, you know, the more dogmatic and superficial spirit would say, this is unacceptable, you know, it's decorative, it's ornamental, it's this and that. It doesn't fit into our 5 or I don't know how many points about how to do modern architecture. But Alvar Aalto doesn't care about such comments at all. After all, is the tree different? If we are to evaluate the trees also have, well, look at it, this is not perfectly vertical, is it? Nor this one. Not to speak about countless other so-called imperfections. Why is it that architects are indifferent to the work of nature? Frank Lloyd Wright was totally correct. Study nature, draw nature, love nature, and it will never let you down. It's true. Are we doing it? Are we at least exploring our inner nature, which is not less generous and complex and sometimes complicated and difficult than the outer one? Because I think there is a relationship between the outer nature and the inner nature. They reflect each other. Again, we can learn a lot from Alvar Aalto to be less stiff, less inhibited and less inhibiting. But yeah, it's true. In order to achieve something like this, you need certain, you know, even spiritual disposition and talent. Here are the owners of the house that I mentioned. They are the 2 columns. The 2 columns that we saw through the house. Also art collectors, you know, well-to-do people. And probably handsome people, even this, you know, rather imperfect picture because not very clear. Is this an Edvard Munch painting? It might be, the great Norwegian painter. I'm in love with Scandinavian culture, maybe because Scandinavia is everything I am not. Now there are here additions in time. I don't know if, you know, the house was inhabited and, you know, people living there had, you know, their own contributions to the house. Villa Mairea. And look at this, you know, I mean, there is music and there is creativity and there is beauty just in this detail here, you know. Why did he make it in this way? You know, I mean, he complicated himself. He could have done it in just one vertical straight pole. That's it. No, no, this is art. And this is sensitiveness that as I said, it cannot be found so easily these days. Although I'm sure there are statements that contradict me, and I'm glad they are. There are. Look at the so-called handrail of this, itself a creation. Everything is, but not ostentatiously, not willfully in a annoying way. No, very fine work. Now, why is the stair musical? Why did the staircase become an organ, like in a church? Because the stair is the one that not only provides access from one floor to another, but it's also a metaphor for the ascending and descending that life is. It's there is music here. That's what I see. I see music. Now the Finnish pavilion, the 1939 New York World's Fair. So 1939, where Wallace Harrison designed the Trilon and the Perisphere, and I talked about Wallace Harrison. And if you are interested in him, an interesting North American architect, you can find the presentation on him on YouTube. Let's look at the Finnish pavilion. What can we say? The same lyrical functionalism that Alvar Aalto was very good at. Even today, perhaps the most interesting and the most creative pavilion, national pavilion at the Venice Biennial, the Venice Biennial in Architecture in Venice, Italy, is the one designed by Alvar Aalto. And I'm afraid I don't have that building, which I admire so much, here in this presentation, and I apologize. But if you are interested, you can find it on Google Images. Just write Finnish Pavilion Venice Biennial, and you'll see it. You see the love of wood and what you can do with wood, transgressing and the apparent limitations of wood. You assert your humanness, you assert your artistic will, but you also are sensitive to not betray the spirit of wood, to understand, after all, the surface of wood here, it's suggesting somehow to do something like this. This is modern art, this is modern design, this is modern architecture, but it's also connecting with the whole history of, fluidities. If we are to refer to the Baroque art or even Rococo art, in a way, nothing is new under the sun or under the sky. Now, this is another great building, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology dormitory, the Baker House, from immediately after the war, 1947, 1948. This is not in Finland any longer, it's in the United States. He also built a library in the United States. That work, in my opinion, is less graceful, but this one is excellent. And Stephen Hall built one equally excellent, not far away from it. So it's Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, USA. It's a students' dormitory from immediately after the war, the Baker House. This is the building. And, you would say, what could be so interesting about a dormitory? You just have rooms left and right, maybe on a corridor, and that's it. Well, you'll see that that Alvar Aalto did much more than this. And look at these stairs, the staircases. It's is the place of encounter. It's where the students kind of come together in ascending or descending the stair. So he makes of a program which could have easily been just functional something more, and the architectonic expression is unique, and not on both sides, on one side. And we are going to see the plan. I hope I have the plan of this building here. But you see the diagonals, because I keep talking about diagonals. The diagonal is asserting life in its dynamic manifestation. And what we have here is the diagonal. The condition of the windows changes itself as opposed to the other ones. It's a brilliant work. And here is the plan. Yes, a fine work. You see the importance of difference, because what we have is difference. You know, but this difference is and you know, it's not accidentally that this is happening, and these two diagonals converge towards here where the entrance into the building is. So it's almost, I mean, without knowing where the entrance is, you'll probably instinctively be aiming to arrive here, because that's what the architecture of the building is pointing towards. And indeed, the entrance into the building is here. You see it clearly in the plan. Now, those who think that architecture is not an art should look at this. You know, it is an art. I mean, what is art after all? Is the sensitivity to express maybe, you know, functional entities into an unexpected way. Maybe this is what art is, you know, because there is a function in art as well. You know, if beauty has a function, and it does, the function of beauty, then art can be seen as functional, as being functional as well. And the drawing, you know, this was a study drawing. You know, look, there is here some kind of a very lyrical you know, sketch, and this is done manually. And some students in the hallway, I think. And look at these bricks. I intentionally placed this slide here because look at this brick here. You know, the pedantic, dogmatic one would say no, this is not like the others, should be eliminated. But shouldn't we in life accommodate differences? You know, maybe one person is kind of like this brick, you know, standing out a little bit with you know, peculiarities, with awkwardness, but it's incorporated into the fabric of the other bricks. It's together with them, even if it's a little bit different, you know. And I think there are now tendencies to accommodate those who are less capable to, for various reasons, to fit into a system in a more generous and democratic way, you know, like how do we accommodate the presence and the function, the functioning of, let's say, someone with a handicap. You know, we have to modify certain conditions in order to yes, accommodate that someone who is a little bit different to be with us, together with us. You need to make certain concessions towards that someone. It's the same here. You know, this brick stands out. I like this picture of and the fact. Now I don't know if Alvar Aalto himself was deciding about this, or just the builder, but it's a picture that moves me. But even here, you see there are bricks that, so-called accidents. I don't know if you know, but Le Corbusier was once, I mean, there was a group of tourists from Switzerland that visited his buildings. And one of them said, yes, your buildings are nice and that, all that, but there are so many imperfections. And he told them, yes, there are. But did you look in the mirror? Did you see on your skin, just on the face, how many little things are there that are not, totally, part of certain perfection, that are imperfect, and yet they are. Nature works in this way. So, these accidents in the making of the brick wall should be welcomed. Of course, it depends how they are done, how it is done. I mean, even the color of the bricks. I like the bricks should not be plastered. I've heard comments that, how do we protect the bricks? Well, how did they protect the bricks? The brick should be allowed to show itself as it is, as a fragment of a, larger portion of the wall or the wall. And there is beauty because it's earth. It's earth. That's what the brick is. And this is the, again, the staircase is an eventful part of the building. Is on one hand, it provides ascending and descending, and on the other, like in this case, is the place of encounter where the students come together, either leaving the building or arriving in the building. So it's the space of encounter, of gathering, in a way. The MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Baker House. Now we look at another great building, Helsinki University of Technology, which I visited from 1949 to 1966, also in Finland. What can we say? Is this a functionalist architecture? Yes, it is. Is it an architecture of expression? Yes, it is. What is this triangle here? It is both functional and expressionistic in a way. It's the auditorium here. And so again, it's the place, is the room of the gathering, is the room where people come together to study, to learn. Done with both logical and emotional means. This is brilliance, is architectural brilliance. That's what we are talking about here. This is the collective room, the public room, and the triangle is pure, and it's serving the function of the auditorium properly. There is an auditorium inside, but there is one outside as well, as you can see. And again, the brick is the brick. I think the brick is a good friend of the tree. The tree is green, the brick is reddish. And I think there is a good complementarity between the tree and be kind and turn off the microphone, otherwise I stop the presentation. Thank you. Please be kind and turn off the microphone. Now look at this. This is also incredible. Now we have the stair, we have the steps, but what are these things here? Because they don't lead to anywhere. They're ornamental. And you say, what's the need for this? Again, architecture, if it's not musical, it's not architecture. It's musical. And again, it's about amplifying the presence and the meaning of the staircase through, yes, decorative, ornamental, decorative manner in a way. But Luis Barragan did the same with his famous narrow and very fragile or almost unstable stair in his own house. Uh, I like this very much because it shows again the symbolic, the metaphoric, and the ornamental side of architecture, which should not be neglected. And he didn't. And look here. Try to imagine this world without these things here, this mimicking. These are you know, very very inspired and inspirational invitations towards the functioning larger staircase. This is art. How else am I to call it? It's art. In a discrete way, Alvar Aalto brought in art, the art of suggestion, the art of metaphor, the art of poetry, in essence, because it's about the poetry of a building. Again, try to imagine this without these two here. It would have been more blunt and more banal and more common. No, he avoided this. And the fragmentation here is also found here on the base. You see again, the column has three parts. Has a base, then has this intermediate. It's not like in classical architecture. It's true there is not a capital, but otherwise we see the three parts of a column, like in a classical column or classical order, but interpreted through a modern for a modern context and with a modern state of mind. So there is invention, there is innovation, but there is also tradition. And look at the section through this very part of the building. It's I almost felt like saying it's formidable, because symbolically the auditorium is the place where people come together. I mean, not just symbolically, but here the dynamic qualities of the triangle are expressed for all to see, and they express the dynamics of many people coming together. So the monument, without which apparently architecture has a difficult time to live with, without the monument is brought into this building, which otherwise is functional, in splendid forms, and yet austere, in an austere, and I mean, it's both reticent and asserting. It's willful and graceful. Very good work. And this triangle, in its silent way, I think, encourages the passerby or the user of these buildings to aspire towards, let's say, this triangle is a metaphor for the aspiration towards knowledge, because this is a university. You know, you go here to study. It's about education. So this triangle formally expresses, you know, the raison d'etre of the building: to educate yourself, to study, to learn. And of course, in the plan, you see most parts of the building are straightforward, except the parts of the building which are for gathering, for like collective spaces. This one and this one much larger. And so, you know, the dialogue, the interplay between the private and the public is in a simple and yet sophisticated way externalized architecturally. This is a beautiful architecture. It really is. You cannot comment negatively on it. You know, it's symbolic, it's metaphoric, it's functional, it's straightforward. Probably it's not even was not an, you know, an abnormally expensive building. It has the interplay, the dialectics, even chromatically, the green of nature and the redness of brick. You have copper here, and then you have the brick. Even in terms of materials, there is a great mastery here. And it doesn't matter during the summer, the spring, the fall, or the winter. It's a building which asserts the human will. It's a building which says, yes, we humans are on this earth kind of in a peculiar position because we are, as Paul Klee said, in the valley of those who know they do not know, between two mountains, the mountain of the animals, they who do not know, they do not know, and the mountain of the gods, they who know, they know. The human being is in between, imperfect, but through learning, through studies, through work, can aspire towards maybe both conditions, those of the gods and maybe even those of the animals, in the good sense of the word. Although we know very well that there is also a bad sense of the word. Let's hope it's not about that. Excellent work, another excellent work by Alvar Aalto. Now a town hall from 1949 to 1952. And this is, I can't pronounce very well this is the name of the town. This one also is a masterpiece in my opinion. It's a romantic architecture, but it's a romanticism which is not neurotic. It's balanced, it's harmonious. It's a town hall, but it's a town hall which is friendly. You know, it's not a town hall which crushes you with its classical orders at the entrance and tells you this is the place of where you should behave yourself. No, it's a friendly architectural organism that is there in order to serve you and not the other way around. I wish more city halls or town halls would look like this. And look at this, you know, of course, fallen bike is at home here. It's fine. It's very human. It's fine. And no one is afraid that this would be stolen because they don't steal there, you know. And look at these steps. They function as steps, but also, you know, they have grass on them, and there is the side covered with wood, very warm and very appropriately. And then again, the beauty of the brick in great interplay, musical interplay with the green of the trees. This is an excellent work. You know, we talk today about sustainability, about ecology. Well, here we have a work which is truly having a dialogue, an inspiring dialogue with what we call nature, you know, because it's done in a sensitive way. And yes, it asserts man, but also not in a bothering way. There is man, but there is also nature in almost in a perfect equilibrium. These steps, to me, they are very inspirational because they are so modest, and yet, I mean, they function. You can sit on them. It's again about man and nature, nature and man. They are together. There is grass, there is wood, there is the geometry of building them and designing them, but not in an aggressive way. They are lyrical in a discreet way. We'll also see the experimental house that he built with his second wife, and that is also an interesting work. And you know, it's perhaps the only building in his oeuvre which could be called experimental. Now, the House of Culture from 1952 to 1958 with huge, there are no windows here, but the geometry, the formal aspects of the building do not need necessarily windows because of these curvatures. Another interesting work by, of course, we could comment a little bit on the opacity of the walls, but it's some kind of a bulwark of resistance. I said it before and I say it again, and I will continue to say it. Quoting from Alvar Aalto. Alvar Aalto said, architecture belongs to culture, not to civilization. And maybe this House of Culture is kind of a little bit misanthropically positioned vis-a-vis the life of the city because of these massive fortress-like walls. But if you conceive of culture as some kind of a realm under siege, then maybe is appropriate, maybe. And then when there is the, when the plans are present on the wall, then you can see that culture is actually in an intimate dialogue with nature, and there shouldn't be a contradiction between genuinely felt and achieved culture and nature. This building is almost inviting the ivy to manifest itself. And you could almost say that these walls were made like this in order for the ivy to fall in love with them and climb on them, which of course the ivy does beautifully. I keep saying a little bit jokingly, but if the facade of your building doesn't turn out well, no problem. Just allow the ivy to take over, and you have the vertical forest, which is so beloved in our times, and you have the spontaneous order or beauty of nature, which doesn't need rules and regulations. It grows as it wants, and it's always beautiful. I never saw a building attacked, so to speak, by ivy, which is ugly. Ivy always brings a freedom and a spontaneity, which, for example, the building here on the right doesn't have. So let's bring in the ivy. The more, the better. On the other hand, the work of the architect is not much different, actually, when you look at the shape of this auditorium that he created. And he has, just like in the case of, well, it's a little bit different, but Louis Kahn identified two different kinds of spaces. The spaces that serve and the spaces that are served. And here we have kind of something similar things. These straightforward, these rectangular parts of the building are, without, much concern for architectural expression. They are functional. But then the room of the gathering, the big auditorium, becomes all of a sudden different. Is sculptural, is emotional, is expressive, because that's where the building achieves its climax, so to speak. And I think this differentiation between, this part of the building and this one is important to notice. Now, this is the experimental house that I mentioned from 1953. And this is a house they built himself with his second wife after Aino died, his first wife, and he remarried. And it's very interesting that he created, or they created, an experimental house. I don't know of any other building by Alvar Aalto that can be called experimental, but this one was called experimental. And it's a house in L. It has an atrium, a courtyard with a fireplace in the center. And there is a playfulness about the way they use the brick that is, you know, rather surprising. And it's very interesting. And I hope I have here more pictures with it. There are two sides of the building. The white towards the exterior, it is white. To the interior, it is red. The brick is not painted. This is again about a certain assertion of dualities. Yesterday, I talked about two-ness. There is a two-ness here too, you know, a duality. An image from the interior. I hope I just a second. Oh no, I don't have enough pictures here. I so regret. Now I'm very unhappy with this presentation. This deserved a much ample presentation. I mean, I have a few images, but not relevant enough because there is a lot of brickwork here that is indeed experimental. It's like patches of various ways of placing the bricks on the walls. And psychologically, I'm tempted to interpret this as if Alvar Aalto was in the process of changing his life. So there was a period of some turmoil. I'm sure he suffered, you know, when Aino died, and then, you know, he had the chance to meet this younger woman, and they fell in love, and he got married for the second time. But I'm sure it was a difficult transition, and in a way, this house represents this. Unfortunately, my presentation here doesn't have more relevant pictures, and I truly regret. Yeah. So this is from 1953. And what is interesting, you see here in the plan is the fireplace, an open air fireplace. In the interesting here that he placed fire outside in the center of the square, which is the courtyard, and the house is in L. So you have a square within a larger square, but not you can't read. I mean, you can read them like this, but at first you are not concentrating on such matters as being a square within a square. But that's what it is. And I don't know if now it's some kind of foundation there, or it's a museum or something. They have here some guest rooms, and this is a portion of the building which is not monumental. Is you saw very low key buildings. The functional scheme is rather simple. One side of this L is with the bedrooms here, and the other side is with the living room, dining room, kitchen, and then the courtyard. Actually, in a way, everything is converging or facing the fireplace in the middle of the courtyard of the court. Too bad. I'm mad at myself that I don't have more pictures here, and I could have had, and I should have had, a view from the interior, from the living room, with some visitors. You know, I think it's some kind of a museum there, or a memorial house, or foundation. Now, this presentation needs improvements. It does, but I'll have another occasion this year if I continue with this on the day he died, because in the case of architects who died, I pay homages twice, on the birthday and on the day when they died. So fate is offering me two chances. So I'm reflecting on this. Why? Because I think this was the original way they or he conceived the building, white towards the outside and unpainted towards the inside, towards the courtyard. Maybe this is some kind of a metaphor that towards the outside, even within a forest, we have to negotiate with the outside, even sometimes to wear a mask. And you could interpret this whiteness, the paint on the bricks, as as that mask, the makeup that one needs to have most of the time, towards the outside. Even perhaps, I am just speculating now or thinking aloud, because it is unusual, how many buildings are done in this way. It also shows the dialectics between the inside, the indoors. I mean, indoors is still outside the courtyard, but is enclosed. And then the outside of the building. So the dialectics between the inner part of the house and the outer part of the house. Interesting. I feel tempted to reflect more on this. Now, the Church of the Three Crosses, from 1956 to 1958. I was traveling through Finland with a student from Bucharest. I told him, Ciprian, let's visit Finland, and he came with me, and we traveled a long time through the forests of Finland to find his church. In the end, we did. I mean, this kind of church would agitate the Orthodox spirit, but fortunately, there are people who know better, actually, and here it is, a building which doesn't really look like a church if you come with a preconception that a church should look in a certain way, but it has a beautiful inside, and even the outside is a modern church. We are dealing with a modern architect. Yes, if modernity means celebration of the transitory, the ephemeral, even the freeing of the human spirit from dogmatic past. Here we have it. It's coherent, it's cohesive, it's a whole, it's a whole, but it's also fragmented. So I see here as well multiplicity in unity. And look at the plants and look at the section. It's a creation, as it should be. Is it sculptural? Yes, it is. It is, and it should be, because the house of God, or what a church is supposed to be, the architectonic other par excellence. If the house of God is not other, then which one? And this is other, both from the outside seen and inside. Here also we see the duality between the served space, the major ample room, where people gather to listen to the liturgical, work, and then, the spaces, the peripheral spaces that serve the climax, the architectural climax. And look at the interior. It's like a spiritual womb. It's yeah, I find it very, very inspiring, and it's again, it's not dogmatic. It's a free space. It's a space of freedom, but not chaotic freedom. No, there is a subtle order here. Truly, we can believe in, we can talk in the case of Alvar Aalto of what now scientists and so on talk about in relation to nature. Spontaneous order. Not dogmatic order, but spontaneous order. There is a level of spontaneity here. Do the trees like this spire here, this vertical element? I think they do. I mean, I don't know. I cannot talk with the trees, but I see a complementarity. Even if Alvar Aalto said that architecture is built for man, and of course it's built for man, I think he was still having a dialogue with nature, and there is an interplay between them. I don't think Alvar Aalto would have used the words of Winnie Mass, no, outsmarting nature. I don't think so. Nor did or would have uh, Frank Lloyd Wright. This kind of foolish words can only belong to our time, outsmarting nature. This coincides with us with saying outsmarting God. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Outsmarting God. You know, it's ridiculous, really. I actually hope Winnie Mars didn't say it. Otherwise, so it published. Maybe there was some kind of something wrong, some kind of a mistake. Look at these windows, look at the walls, you know, it's why didn't he make them straight? Well, why didn't God make the trees straight? And everything is nature. In nature, it's not straight, you know, traced with T-squares and rectangle. God didn't use T-squares and rectangles. He didn't. It doesn't mean that Aalto didn't use them either. No, he did use them, but he was not conditioned by the T-square and the rectangle. As you can see, he was able to use them, but still assert his freedom, his lyricism, his sculpturalness, and so on in his architecture. It's so musical. It's so, you know, look at this. You know, this is great art. You know, it's simple and complex at the same time. This is actually from another church. I think something wrong here. I have I have another presentation on Alvar Aalto. I'm beginning to lose control of them because I have several on every architect, and I should have named them in a different way. Now, this town center in 1957 is, why is it a town center? It's a town library, it's a church, and it's the administrative buildings. And is another excellent proof that Aalto was truly a great architect. You know, it's this bluish ceramic tiles, no, not bluish, dark blue and indigo. There is a different word now, which I cannot find. Very unusual, you know. I mean, who would cover a governmental building in this way? Because this is what we are looking at here, governmental building. Look at this. You know, this is the church here, the clock tower, but this is the administrative building, if you can believe it. He did say that architecture belongs to culture and not to civilization, but I think maybe much of architecture belongs to both. You know, I think he was only reacting to an excessive concern with what we call civilization. But what I see in this picture, I see civilization as well. You know, there is culture, there is also civilization. Even the fact that these people are using bikes, and I'm a great advocate of biking and bicycles. It shows a high level of civilization, something that less civilized countries do not have. You know, who still believe obsessively in cars and cars again. The building is connected with the outside through, intermediate forms of negotiating with the outside, and these are important. A architecture becomes a landscape, and landscape becomes architecture. They are connected. It's about connecting. Now, I don't know about the church. In my opinion, is it's not so inspired or inspiring, but obvious it is. Maybe a little bit too obvious, and a little bit cold, I would say, for a church. Maybe there is more sacrality, if I can call it so, in the administrative building that is in this one, and even mysteriousness than in the church. Maybe this says something about Alvar Aalto. Anyway, and now we go to a Museum of Modern Art in Aalborg in Denmark, which he built 1958, 1972. Another, moderately musical work within nature, a museum. This time not in Finland. I think his best works are actually in Finland. He also built in Germany, and we saw in the United States. In Italy as well, he built a church, which I like in Italy, and I hope I have it here. There is creativity and inventiveness everywhere. This is what an architect is supposed to do, to invent, to create. And look, he did this here for bring light in through certain manipulations of the ceiling. You would say you might like it or you might not like it, but it's a creative way of channeling natural light towards the walls where probably paintings would be, or other artifacts. Louis Kahn did something similar, but in a different way at the Kimball Museum in Texas. So this is in Denmark. Now we arrive at the community center in Wolfsburg in Germany. There are certain signature elements of an Aalto architecture, like we have seen already, the room of the gathering, the big auditorium or the public collective space. And then, it's the dialectic between spaces that serve and spaces that are served. Now, another building in Helsinki, a different kind of building because it's an office building, and it does look like an office building, as maybe it should look like an office building. It still has dignity and seriousness and some sensitivity, but it's not sculptural and so unexpected as other buildings he designed. So he was able to do this sort of thing as well. I mean, it would be ridiculous to make an office building look like the opera in Sydney. No, it's not appropriate. An office building should look kind of like this. Now, this is a building in Bremen, in Germany, from 1962. It's an apartment building. If you can believe it, if you look at the plan, the apartments open as fans towards towards one side of the building. I like the plan. The building in its exterior image is perhaps a little bit not so organic as the plan shows. But we see here the same duality that we also saw in the Chiasma building by Stephen Hall. Here we see the apartments are, more lyrically, so to speak, conceived, and then we have the service or the serving spaces that are rather straight, and so there is this, dialogue between the two. So this is the plan of the apartment building, blocks of flats, this block of flats, and here is the building. It is a little bit extruded. That is, from that plan, he just added, I don't know how many floors, but that's why I think some of the variations in plan do not seem to manifest themselves vertically, and I think that's problematic a little, but anyway. So this is in Germany, an apartment building. He built also in a block of flats in Berlin. I don't have that one here. Anyway, this is interior design work in New York, the Institute of International Education. I think he just had an intervention inside the building, and we see here, artistic manipulation of wood, probably based on the experiments they had at Artec, the company they founded, or he founded together with his wife, his first wife, Aino. Another work, another library in Finland from 1965. Now the Finlandia Hall that I mentioned earlier when we looked at the sketch, an important work, 1962-1971. You probably know it. It's an important building in Helsinki. And again, Alvar Aalto at his best. And it is at his best because, again, I see multiplicity in unity. And the culmination, the sculptural culmination of the building is for the large space, which is the space of the gathering, the collective space, the large space, which is the raison d'etre of the building, the very raison d'etre of the building. I like the way, the rocks are left here, and it's this conjunction between the human work and nature's work. it's just, again, it shows sensitivity and complexity and simplicity at the same time. And this is not a simplist architecture, no. As I said, not far away from it is the Kiasma Museum by Stephen Paul, which I mentioned a few times today for some reason. So we see again the capriciousness, so to speak, of ornamental interventions, which have the reason to manifest themselves as well. Finlandia Hall. Now the library, this one, in my opinion, I show it more in order to show that actually Alvar Aalto was at his best in Finland, and when he built in some other country, particularly in the United States, although I'm probably not totally right, because that dormitory at MIT was fine, but this building is rather cold, and it's almost like, it's almost as if it is not a building by Alvar Aalto. Even the interior, it has these curves, but no, it's not the same. It's not the same sensitivity. Yes, here the space has a certain complexity and fluidity, but no, no, I prefer him in Finland. I could be accused of localism, but here I see the something of globalism, and makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Yes, there is still a spatial variety and interest, but I don't know, the materials, the nature somehow is less present. Now the Alvar Aalto studio, his own studio, and their own furniture there. Now it's a museum or a foundation there. I have to remake this presentation because I'm not happy with it any longer. I will do a new one from the very beginning. He became a sculpture. That's how some people arrive at after their death. They become sculptures, and most people do not. But even becoming a sculpture is probably not warming Alvar Aalto wherever he is too much. He had his studio here. That's where people work, because he didn't do these buildings alone. Now we don't see the drafting boards. I should have had the picture with the drafting boards, but we see them here. This is maybe I mean, it's another side of the building. I see computers there, and drawers for drawings and prints and so on. Maybe there is still some architectural activity going on there. It's possible. I don't know. I understood that in the summer they would work actually outside in the courtyard. That would have been very nice, and it's probably true. This is an image, an older image, maybe from the time when it was built. And yes, here is the courtyard, and I understood in the summer, in the nice days, during the nice days, they would work outside. Now, as a designer, and we are approaching the end of this imperfect presentation, I'm not happy with this presentation, and I apologize, but we still try to pay homage to him on his birthday. Alvar Aalto, as a designer, well, was it just Alvar? Here I understood that Aino Aalto had a major role in the creation of the furnitures for the Paimios sanatorium, and this is the Paimios chair. These were pieces created by and for Artec, the company, the Paimio chair. You can still find some of these pieces, if not all of them, at IKEA, produced today. Glassware, chairs. You see, in a way, in an unfair way, his name is mentioned, but the name of Aino Aalto is not mentioned, although she was, directly involved in the creation of. In fact, this chair, I think, was created by her, from what I read and from what I remember of my presentation on Aino Aalto. And this one is a variant of it. The supremacy of the male should end. And I think it's high time to allow the feminine sensitivity and intelligence to manifest themselves, because they have a lot to say and their voice was not so much heard in a so-called civilization and in a culture dominated in patriarchal times by men. But apparently before Greece, there was matriarchy in the world, before Greece, but we forgot matriarchy, unfortunately. I personally think we should return to some form of matriarchy, a matriarchal society instead of a patriarchal society. Would it be better? We don't know. Women are also human beings just like the men, but for a change, it might be good, I think. Man tried his best to destroy the earth. Now maybe the woman can repair something, hopefully, can mend things. Now, with this, I end the presentation. I'll just show some images of his paintings because he also painted. Here they are, and actually his paintings are not very different from his architecture in spirit. You almost see here the silhouette of one of his paintings, of one of his buildings. You see, there is a dark spot in his architecture too, and in his artworks too. And this, I feel tempted to psychoanalyze a little bit the presence of that dark spot here as well. And I feel tempted to say that that darker region of his architecture and his artworks expresses his complexity and his possible melancholia or even pessimism. It's possible. Would you call this an optimistic artwork? I'm not so sure about it. Okay, happy birthday, Alvar Aalto, and thank you for those of you who are here.